He breathed softly, kissing the hollow of her neck. Falling into bed with my childhood sweetheart, the third day of the parents' business trip. The air outlet of the living room's central air conditioner is blowing 26-degree cold air. The sound of the wind followed a regular pattern, yet it couldn't drown out the noises coming from the master bedroom's bathroom. The sound of rushing water, and mingling with it, a faint, intermittent little tune hummed softly by the clouds. It was a pop song H.E.D. never heard before. Its melody was gentle and flowing, with an intentionally languid quality. Lin Che leaned against the sofa. The phone screen was lit up, showing a basketball live stream, but he hadn't watched a single clip of it. Her ears were like radar, picking up every sound behind the frosted glass door. The two families had been neighbors for over 15 years. From playing in the yard with his open crotch pants and getting covered in mud, to him being admitted to college and her moving on to the high school next door. Lin Che had always thought that Yun Shu Kion was simply Yun Shu Kion. Just the little shadow who trails behind him, with her ponytail tied up, and who can only burst into tears whenever she gets bullied, then just waits for him to step in and defend her. Until 3 days ago, the parents of both sides, for people in total, had gone together to a neighboring province to discuss a collaborative project. They left her at his home. It was only then that Lin Che realized that some things had already changed completely without him even noticing. The sound of water had stopped. He immediately locked his gaze back onto his phone, his fingers sliding aimlessly across the screen, pretending to be a perfectly ordinary otaku deeply engrossed in sports news. Lin Che. Yunshu Kion's voice came through the frosted glass door. The voice carried the mist of freshly bathed water, slightly hazy, yet tender and soft. His throat was dry, and he squeezed out a single syllable from his Adam's apple. I think I forgot to bring my pajamas. The tone carried a deliberately suppressed blush. There are also towels, he added, as if stating a well-established fact. Pick it up yourself. Lin Che deliberately made his voice sound impatient. Only he himself knew how much effort it had taken to suppress the damn turmoil in his voice. I'm not wearing anything, how can I take it? Yun Shu Kion stepped lightly inside and stamped her foot. The voice sounded angry, like a little cat whose tail had just been stepped on. Right there on the bed in my room. Could you grab it for me? Her voice softened, tinged with a plea. The pink towel, and that blue slip dress. The voice grew softer and softer, as if each word were soaked with moisture. Lin Che lingered for half a minute, but finally got up from the sofa, feeling a tightness in his chest. The guest room where HES staying temporarily used to be his study. Pushing the door open, a strange, sweet scent mingled with hints of peach and floral notes immediately hit me in the face. This isn't the scent of his mother's perfume, nor is it the smell of any kind of personal care product. This is the flavor uniquely belonging to Yun Shu Kia. On the bed, a pale pink bath towel is spread out. The blue slip dress is stacked next to it. It was a pale sky blue silk nightgown, with shoulder straps so thin they seemed as if they'd snap at the slightest tug. The fabric glows with a soft halo under the light, so thin it's almost transparent. Lin Che's gaze could even penetrate through it, faintly catching a glimpse of the white lingerie beneath, adorned with lace trim. His breathing suddenly slowed down. He reached out and grabbed the pile of soft fabric. The touch at my fingertips is cool and silky, as if I were holding a handful of flowing moonlight. He turned around almost as if fleeing, quickly walking toward the bathroom door. His heart was pounding wildly in his chest, each beat striking against his ribs and sending waves of dull pain through him. He raised his hand and knocked on the door, making an effort to keep his voice steady. The door opened a small crack. A wave of heat, richer than anything in the room and mingled with the fresh scent of body wash and her body temperature, surged forth suddenly. The heat seemed alive, enveloping his entire body. A pale, moist hand reached out from the crack in the door. My nails are coated with a sparkling cherry pink shade. That hand swiftly snatched the clothes from his hand. Her fingertip brushed lightly across the back of his hand, almost by accident. Like a faint electric current, It shot through his entire body in an instant, leaving half of his body numb. The door clicked shut. Lin Che retreated to the living room and slumped heavily into the sofa. It was only then that he realized his back was already covered with a light layer of sweat. 10 minutes feel as long as a century. When the bathroom door opened again, he forced himself to stare at the TV, pretending to be deeply interested in the commercials playing on it. The sound of footsteps grew closer and closer, bare feet tapping lightly on the floor with a faint pat sound. He glanced at it out of the corner of his eye, then I was stunned. Yunshu walked toward him, wiping her wet hair with a towel as she went. That sky-blue nightgown was even more breathtaking than HED imagined. The skirt's hem was very short, just barely covering the base of her thighs, revealing the straight, well-proportioned long legs that glowed dazzlingly white under the lights. The neckline is V-shaped, not particularly low, but as she wipes her hair, a faint, gentle curve becomes subtly visible. She was barefoot, and on the pale backs of her feet, delicate pink toenails resembled 10 tiny, exquisite seashells. She seemed not to notice his lapse in composure and walked straight to the refrigerator, pulling open the door. "Is your air conditioner broken? It's sweltering in here." Complaining, she picked up a bottle of ice water and tilted her head back to gulp it down. The throat rolls, and the slender neck traces a graceful curve. A few droplets of water slid down the corner of her mouth, trickled over her collarbone, and finally disappeared into the neckline of her nightgown. Lin Che felt his throat burning up. "What are you looking at, Kyun?" Shu Qian finally noticed his gaze, screwed the bottle cap shut, and instinctively used a towel to shield her chest. Her cheeks flushed with a blush that was visible to the naked eye at an astonishingly rapid pace. "Who told you to dress like that?" He looked away, his voice as dry and raspy as sandpaper rubbing against itself. "Come on, this is a nightgown, right?" Yunshu lightly shook her half-dry hair, and a few cool droplets splashed onto his face. "Even though it's your own home, is wearing a nightgown illegal?" She gave him a quick sidelong glance, curled up on the other end of the sofa, crossed her legs, and picked up the remote to change the channel. A subtle movement. A thin shoulder straps slid down along her rounded shoulders. She was completely unaware. Lin Che clearly heard the sound of his own swallowing, which echoed especially loudly in the quiet living room. "Cloud comb. Light." He spoke, his voice raspier than HED imagined. "Could you just put your clothes on?" The girl's motion of changing the channel came to a halt. She turned her head, and those always teary almond-shaped eyes were now wide open. "Lin Che, are you sick or something?" She seemed to have heard some colossal joke. From childhood to adulthood. "What haven't you seen? During elementary school summer vacation, I wore a bikini and spent the whole day at the water park with you, yet you never acted like this before." "That's different," Lin Che retorted without a second thought. "What's the difference?" She pressed further, leaning slightly forward. Back then, you were still a skinny little brat with yellow hair, your chest as flat as an airport runway. Now you have already." These words, like a tangled knot lodged in his throat, eventually turned into a muffled murmur. She ignored him again. The canned laughter from TV variety shows filled the living room with quiet, yet made the atmosphere feel even more eerie. Lin Che forced himself to stare at the screen, but his gaze was completely out of his control. Yunshu's pale skin glowed white under the light. She carried the same lemon-scented body wash that he did. But, for some reason on her, the fragrance took on an especially unique quality, a sweetness that made one's mind wander and lose focus. "If you keep staring at me, I'll gouge out your eyeballs." His whole body froze, and he realized he'd been daydreaming again. "Who's looking at you? You're just being overly sensitive," he stubbornly retorted, yet his ears were so hot they could fry an egg. She let out a soft hum and hugged her pillow tightly against her chest. This movement, on the contrary, caused the neckline of the nightgown to be squeezed even more. Giving it a sharper outline, Lin Che suddenly stood up. "I'll go to the kitchen for a moment." "Cola." she commanded without lifting her head. Out. He rushed into the kitchen as if fleeing, flung open the refrigerator door, and let the cold air blast against his face. My heart is racing so fast it feels like it's about to explode. He took several deep breaths in a row before managing to calm himself down somewhat. Returning to the living room with 2 cans of Coke, she had already changed her position, lying on my side on the sofa, one hand propping up my head, while the other holds my phone and dim scrolling through it. The hem of the nightgown had curled up to mid-thigh due to this position, revealing a patch of pale skin and the edge of the lace panties. Yours. He placed the cola in the corner of the coffee table farthest from her. Thanks. He reached out to grab it, leaning forward with her upper body, and the neckline of her nightgown gaped wide open. Lin Che immediately turned around, pretending to have developed a keen interest in the landscape painting on the wall. A painting he'd been looking at for over a decade. What's wrong with you tonight? You're reacting weird. She pulled the tab on the can, making a hiss sound. You're usually pretty talkative, aren't you? How come you suddenly become so quiet? Lin Che took a big gulp of ice minus cold cola. The bubbles tingled his throat, bringing a sharp, stinging sensation. Nothing much. Just a bit tired. Oh. He paused briefly, and her voice suddenly grew softer. Actually, I'm a bit unaccustomed to it too. He finally turned to look at her. That's it. It's the first time we've ever lived together, just the 2 of us. She kept her eyes lowered, her fingers unconsciously tracing circles on the cold Coke can. It was only then that he realized this suffocating awkwardness between them was something they'd ever experienced before. Right now, in this 200 square meter house, there's only him and one woman. Remember that time in 4th grade? He found himself speaking out of nowhere, trying to break this dumb ambiguity with memories. You got your newly bought hair clip snatched by Wang Pengzi, and I ended up getting into a fight with him. She turned her head, and a faint smile finally appeared on her lips. Remember, your nose was bleeding, yet you stubbornly insisted everything was fine. In the end, you didn't get the card back, and the teacher made you stand as punishment. That kid deserves it. He shrugged his shoulder. Who asked him to make you cry? You were really brave back then. She spoke softly, her gaze growing tender in the light. Lin Che's heartbeat skipped a beat. He suddenly realized that everything tonight seemed different from before. The lemon-scented shower gel in the air, the muffled laughter from the TV, and in her eyes, a tenderness so soft as yet never seen before, belonging solely to a young girl. Everything is silently announcing that they've all grown up. Lin Che, she suddenly spoke, her voice very soft. Are you? She bit her lower lip, as if hesitating. Are you maybe a little bit fond of me? Lin Che's mind went completely blank in an instant. He looked at her cheeks were flushed in the light, and her eyes held a hint of both anticipation and unease. He opened his mouth, but found that he couldn't say a thing. Yin Che's shoulders slumped, and she turned her head away, forcing herself to sound calm as she said, Forget it, I was just asking casually. I like you. A deep voice echoed in the quiet living room. Lin Che himself was stunned. He watched as she abruptly turned her head. Her almond-shaped eyes filled with astonishment. I'm not treating you like a younger sister. He took a deep breath, his voice sting with the resolute determination of leaving no room for retreat. I can't even remember when it started, she said. Maybe it was the moment when, for the first time, she'd been bullied. Hed stepped in front of her. Maybe it was the moment Hed watched her grow up bit by bit, becoming more and more radiant, or perhaps it was tonight watching her with a moment of wearing a nightgown and sipping an ice-cold cola under the light. He finally admitted that the little shadow who'd been trailing behind him since childhood had long since grown into a young woman he couldn't bring himself to look directly at, and had also become the deepest, most hidden secret Hed kept locked away in his heart. Lin Che, her voice was trembling, him not joking. He walked up to her, crouched down, and forced her to look at him. Yun Shu Qian, I've liked you for a long time. The air seemed to have frozen. The laughter from the TV and the fizz of the cola both disappeared. Only the sounds of his and her heartbeats remained. Yetly, she reached out and hooked her hand around his neck, pulling him toward herself. Her kiss tasted of icy cola, green and yet boldly daring. Idiot. She pressed her lips against his and said softly, "So am I." The moonlight outside the window streams into the living room, falling upon the intertwined figures. The central air conditioning continues to blow cool air steadily, yet the air in the living room is growing hotter. Cloud comb. Night. He sighed softly, kissing the hollow of her neck. Huh? As for this nightgown, from now on, you'll wear it only for me to see. She smiled, her voice tinged with tears, yet filled with the joy of having regained something lost. Okay,